For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Sally Peacock and I'm the Senior Compliance Inspector for the Livestock Compliance Unit based in Broome. And what does all that mean? Well, the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development, we were the old Department of Agriculture, has a group of staff based right across the state. And what we do is inspect a variety of livestock aggregation points, processing facilities and properties to ascertain their compliance with the Animal Welfare Act and codes of practice. We also investigate allegations of animal cruelty that are reported to us. Most of those come via the RSPCA. So what or who is driving this current interest in animal welfare? Animal advocacy is not a new concept. In 1964, Ruth Harrison wrote a book titled Animal Machines, which raised concerns about the new confinement and systems resulting in animals living unnatural and unhealthy lives. And they were considered miserable lives. We've now got a large number of organisations that base their philosophies on animal welfare. They run campaigns that they see the important issues of the day. One of those is all familiar to you, live export. Other things they focus on, factory farming, dairy calves, puppy factories. They advertise heavily on radio and TV and they have really flashy websites. They post prolifically on social media. They rely on this sensationalised reporting to get their public funding. Some of these organisations promote vegetarianism and veganism as the only ethical options for modern day eating and the only options for good animal welfare outcomes for animals. The most extreme of those groups would like to see us abolish pet ownership and farming altogether. Animal advocates are constantly questioning humans' ethical stance on the validity of animal uses and social licence. I'm not sure if you've heard that one, but that's a new buzz term that I often hear now, and that I think is relating primarily to the public approval of how animals are used for farming. So is what they're saying a load of rubbish? And you know, is it relevant to us? Do we have it all sorted in terms of animal welfare? Well, in 2018, so just this year alone, we, the compliance units, inspected some 90 allegations of cruelty against farm animals in Western Australia. These investigations have resulted in regulatory action ranging from livestock management advice right through to prosecution. So 90 is a fair number for this, you know, we're not 3/4 of the way through the year yet. So I would suggest no, we don't have it all sorted and we should be continually striving to do better with animal welfare. As soon as we have animals under our care, there are inherent risks with the welfare, and identification and management of these risks is crucial. Why does animal welfare matter? If I ask you all here to give me an answer, hopefully they'd be things like market access and protection, maintaining live exports, but more importantly to ensure that animals are well cared for, live happy and healthy lives. There's a lot of reasons why animal welfare is important, and not all of them are related to live export. I don't come with a radical agenda, I'm not an animal activist, but I do appreciate that those advocate groups keep us on our toes in regards to animal welfare. Large companies such as supermarkets and abattoirs are now recognising that animal welfare is important to their consumers, and as major processors and purchasers, they're now demanding that animal welfare is included in their quality assurance programs. I applaud these companies for taking on animal welfare and taking it so seriously, but I'm always disappointed and frustrated that a lot of the marketing campaigns such as sow stall free pork are widely misunderstood by consumers. I think we really need to work hard on that. In terms of market access, there's a lot riding on an industry's reputation. That reputation will include that animals are treated well from birth to slaughter. They are treated as sentient beings, that producers understand and consider that animals are able to perceive, feel, and experience things such as, and emotions such as pain, happiness and sadness, and that animals are treated respectfully. Some modern welfare philosophies are based on act to what is right, not to what is regulated. Regulation represents a minimum standard and that we should be doing more than the minimum. Today, we the farming community are faced by massive hurdles over animal welfare. A recent study commissioned by the National Farmers Federation found that 83% of Australians said that agriculture and farming have little or no relevance to their lives. That's a really big chunk. In the past 35 years, we've lost 2/3 of our farmers. In the good old days, everyone had cousins on the land and we went and spent our school holidays working in the sheepyards and driving tractors. Those days are long gone. Australia is now one of the most urbanised countries in the world, And for many, food and fibre production is off the radar of most people. What they do see is always negative animal welfare portrayed in the media. I spent an hour listening to pastoralists at a meeting recently, and they were talking about how to write into employment contracts that staff were not permitted to take photos while working on stations, as they might capture a negative animal welfare image. My question to all of you is, why not rectify the animal welfare issues and show the world what a great job we are doing as farmers? Too many consumers now have very little idea how the food that they eat is produced. So with all that in mind, the harsh reality of the work that I do is ensuring people abide by the law, the Animal Welfare Act. Just like driving a car, there are lots of laws which say what we can and cannot do with an animal that is under our care. The purpose of that act is to provide for the welfare, safety and health of animals. One of the quite important parts of the Act is Part 3, Offences Against Animals. It states that a person must not be cruel to an animal. We all have varying opinions about what is cruel, but under law it's very well defined, with the key phrase being unnecessary harm. Under the Act, harm is defined as injury, pain and distress, evidenced by severe abnormal physiological or behavioural reactions. So it's pretty cut and dry when you look at it in the law. Activities such as transport, confinement, provision of proper and sufficient food, and surgical or similar operations are all specified under Part 3, and they all refer to unnecessary harm. It's all pretty dry and boring, but it's important that you as producers have an awareness and understanding of the Animal Welfare Act, just like driving your car and understanding the road rules. From my perspective, the big ticket items for animal welfare in the northern pastoral environment are transport, dehorning and horn tipping, and herd management. Some of those issues within herd management are understanding the structure of your herd, how many animals do you have in each age group, how old are the oldest cows, how many of those cows finished a calf last year, how many of those cows came in an emaciated state, and how many cows did you sell as opposed to how many died in the paddock. Animal health, what's your vaccination program, what diseases are endemic in your herd, and which ones of those could you be doing something about? And animal welfare opportunities, can you run a tighter mating period? Is early weaning a strategy that you can implement on your property for your late season calves? I'm sure that most of you have also heard that there's changes to the animal welfare legislation and that they're now pending. The amendment bill is very much under discussion at the moment and will possibly be passed by the end of this year. The original proposal was very complex. It's now under review by the Minister, but the intent of that legislative change will remain the same, that government will have the scope to regulate standards and guidelines. So what does this mean to all of you? In a nutshell, there's 17 areas, primarily focusing on, they're currently covered by codes of practice that will now be able to be regulated, and those regulations will be enforceable by law. So again, with the Act, it's really important that you understand what those areas will be, and most of them relate to husbandry of animals, farming or grazing activities and transportation. So again, just make sure you've got an awareness of that Act. When it changes, understand what it means to you. Knowing those codes and the standards and how they relate to you is really important to ensure that you're operating within the law. It's really great to be here today at an event that's so heavily focused on positive animal welfare outcomes. Walking into yards where low stress livestock handling is being done is like poetry in motion. I always love it. And I congratulate the organisers and you, the attendees, for supporting the event. To finish off, I'd like to give you all a challenge. I would like to challenge you to not only look at your own enterprise to assess and address the animal welfare risks, but assess your own attitude towards animal welfare. As Tim Minchin, a now quite famous Western Australian, said in his 9 life lessons speech to UWA graduates, if you haven't seen it, look it up. Be hard on your opinions. They should be constantly and thoroughly examined. We must think critically and not just about the ideas of others. Be hard on your beliefs. Take them out onto the veranda and hit them with the cricket bat. We all become very habituated to what we see and do. Be mindful of that. The rest of society may see things very differently, and yes, the opinion of the rest of society does matter. I hope that you all can look at animal welfare as a journey and not a destination. Thank you.